I have a very blunt answer. Let's do the job right on the things that we have selected. Progressively, at some future date, that's your choice. But today, I recommend only those things that are included in the reg, which I think if we accomplish that, we've done one heck of a lot in improving the air supply in West Virginia. I'm finished. Chairman?
You want all these documents to be part of the record?
Yes, sir.
Would you number those and ask the clerk reporter to enter those as directed exhibits?
Oh, boy. Yes, we can do that. I'll have to try to remember the order of which presented, but we'll get them in there. I'd just like you to have them in some future time for whatever the worth you feel there.
Are there any questions that are directed from the commission? Thank you, Judge.
Appreciate it very much. That finishes what we have in there.
Now we have several people that have asked to make statements. First is Mr. Jack Harrison, West Virginia Petroleum Council.
Swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
My name is Jack Harrison. I'm the director of the West Virginia Petroleum Council, and our member companies distribute and sell petroleum products throughout the state of West Virginia. We appreciate this opportunity to come and discuss this morning with you our concerns about Regulation 27. I'm most appreciative of Carl's remarks making it clear that this regulation does not address the benzene associated with gasoline products. And of course, that's our major concern here. We have supported many of the air programs developed by Carl and his staff, particularly the VOC regulations that have been implemented earlier. And we feel we have a good track record with the Commission and are willing to work and try to develop any program that's necessary to control problems that we're involved with. But I do want to, in light of what Carl has said, I'm going to have some brief remarks, just some general observations, and then I'll refer you to my written comments that address the entire regulation. There are four things that we want to just point out to you, and you can look at my written comments at your leisure. The first thing that I want to discuss is that this regulation, and let me jump over here since Carl's taken most of the punch out. If you'll turn to page 2 on my written comments, you will notice I'll direct your attention to some definitions. We've suggested some language changes that might help the staff address the problem Carl's talking about, particularly chemical processing unit, and then continuing on page 3, toxic air pollutant service, and back. We think these changes will help clarify the application of this regulation. I'll not specifically get into all of our concerns about it as it's written. If many of those changes are adopted, I think Carl's intent will be accomplished, that it will not apply to gasoline distribution. I think this would probably place undue burdens on the consuming public when this appears to be a chemical manufacturing operation regulation. So we're pleased that Carl has agreed that that's the intention here. I'll be available for any additional comments or questions that you might have. We've appreciated the opportunity to work with Carl over the years, and I would like to take the time just to publicly say we've enjoyed the work with you, Carl, and I wish you the best of luck in whatever you decide to do after December 30th. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to address those.
Mr. Harrison. Mr. Beard? Harrison, you want this written?
Yes, I'd like those submitted. I think that might help.
You give a copy of the paper.
Yes. Were there extra copies up there, Carl?
Yes, there are.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I recognize Mr. Robert Link, must be West Virginia Manufacturing.
You keep it from here out. We'll work back on the other end. You keep it from here out. We'll work back on the other end.
Thank you. You swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Commissioners and Director Beard, my name is Bob Link, and I'm the plant manager at South Charleston Plant for Union Carbide Corporation. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Chemical Industry Committee of the West Virginia Manufacturers Association. This committee has asked me to explain our position on the proposed regulation Series 27 regarding the prevention and control of toxic air emissions. We appreciate the opportunity today to address the Commission and to express our substantial concerns about the proposed rule. Before I begin my formal remarks, I want to take a few minutes to acknowledge the contributions to this state of Carl Beard. Carl, we in industry have disagreed with you from time to time, but while ours is sometimes appears to be an adversarial relationship, we want to acknowledge the excellent job you've done in your long tenure with the Air Pollution Control Commission. Your tireless dedication has been exemplary, and we wish you well as you seek your new challenges. Returning to the purpose of my remarks today, the best way to sum up our reaction to Series 27 is that it's the wrong solution to the problem. As we see it, the Commission wants to reduce emissions to the air of chemicals that are potentially hazardous to health, and the chemical industry in West Virginia agrees with this goal. We do not agree, however, that the proposed regulation is the best way to accomplish this mutually held objective.
Hold just for a minute till we change tape.
Okay. It is our view that the Commission should be concerned about reductions in the total amount of undesirable emissions, not in how industry goes about making those reductions. We have offered an alternative plan about which I will speak today, which we feel meets the goals of reduced emission of toxic air pollutants more effectively, more quickly, and in a way which is least costly to industry. Let me emphasize strongly that the chemical industry is completely committed to going ahead now to achieve reduction in emission of toxic air pollutants. That is evidenced by our voluntary reduction efforts suggested by Director Beard, which have resulted in an estimated 80% reduction of emissions in the Kanawha Valley of 8 of the listed chemicals since 1984 at a cost of nearly $19 million. It is further evidenced by the submission to the Commission in October of this year of a comprehensive plan for the development of a binding negotiated agreement among the chemical facilities and the Commission to reduce emissions even further. I will speak about this reduction program in more detail in a minute. We have a number of general problems with the rule, which I will describe. The more specific problems are included in written comments being submitted today. The rules create the following concerns. The definition of best available control technology, or BACT, does not recognize, as it must, any element of economic consideration or actual demonstrated viability of available technology. In addition, no protection period is included in the proposed rule. Once a facility has made the investment and installed the BACT, it should not have to face that process again for some reasonable period of time. In deciding what should be done to reduce emissions at an existing source, there are factors to be considered, such as available space, rearrangement of equipment, and the economic condition of the unit. In designing a new unit, a higher level of performance may be achieved. Significant reductions often can be achieved through point source controls at a reasonable cost, whereas control of fugitive emissions can be difficult, expensive, and result in much smaller reductions. Again, reduction of overall emissions should be the goal, targeting the most effective means as a priority. Trying to control very small releases rather than dealing with the plant as an entity is contrary to good environmental practices in our view. We want to be able to make the greatest positive impact possible with our environmental dollars. To get the best results for investments made, managers should be allowed to evaluate and develop control strategies on a plant-wide basis. This is the bubble concept which you are familiar with in your Regulation 19. The provisions on control of emissions from wastewater treatment facilities are extraordinarily stringent and probably incapable of being achieved. There are no minimum cutoffs for the regulated pollutants. As we understand the proposed rule, any source containing or emitting the first molecule is subject to the rule. Appropriate minimum values must be included in any regulation of this type to be even remotely reasonable. In many cases, the rules specify types of control technology. This violates the West Virginia Code, which dictates that no rule or regulation of the Commission shall specify a particular manufacturer of equipment, nor a single specific type of construction, nor a particular method of compliance except as specifically required by the Federal Clean Air Act. The Commission's proposed regulation should allow free latitude in developing the best pollution reduction system for a given process. We do not come today only to criticize the proposed regulation. The solution we offer, however, differs significantly. We would like to build a program with the Commission around assumed cooperation rather than assumed failure, as in the case of Series 27. In April of this year, with the encouragement of Director Beard, the West Virginia Manufacturers Association submitted its first position paper summarizing our suggestions for a negotiated reductions program. Other meetings followed, and in early October of this year, we submitted to you and to Director Beard a comprehensive program for the negotiated control of 13 listed pollutants. We believe our proposal merits complete discussion and response prior to promulgating any proposed rule. Implementation of our program would bring about reductions much more quickly and very much more cost effectively. This morning I'll touch on the highlights of our plan. The Air Pollution Control Commission should consider economic, energy, environmental, and non-air quality related impacts in setting what the BACT should be in a given situation. For existing sources, the Air Pollution Control Commission also would consider the remaining useful life of the facility and the technological difficulties and economic impacts associated with retrofitting. Control technology would be applied on a plant-wide bubble basis to allow flexibility in addressing practical control problems, yet providing significant overall emission control. A program would be developed by each participant and submitted as part of its BACT plan to demonstrate continued compliance with this program. An advisory council called the Scientific Advisory Board would be appointed to advise and consult with the Commission to assess and recommend areas with potential air quality problems and to recommend additions to or deletions from the covered pollutants list. Within 12 months of the effective date of the program, participating facilities would submit a plan for identification and implementation of a best available control technology to the Director. A 10-year protection period would apply, within which further controls or retrofit would not be required after implementation of BACT. In the case of control malfunctions resulting in excess emissions, operators would report the circumstances to the Air Pollution Control Commission Director. Minimum qualities of emissions would be established, and all facilities with peak emission rates greater than these minimums would be subject to the program. Specific guidelines for determining best available control technology are part of this program. The West Virginia Code empowers the Air Pollution Control Commission to encourage voluntary cooperation by municipalities, counties, industries, and others in preserving the purity of the air within the state. Our proposal accomplishes this task more quickly, more effectively, and in the most cost-efficient manner possible. The chemical industry is very willing to shoulder its share of the responsibility for clean air. We specifically urge the Commission to defer any further rulemaking at this time. Instead, we request the opportunity to sit down with the Commission staff to review and discuss our proposal, which we believe offers the best and fastest response to this problem. Again, we thank you for allowing us to comment today, and I'd welcome your questions.
Any questions, Mr. Lawrence, from the commission? Mr. Beard?
Just thanking for the council. No, sir, I expected about what Mr. Link gave you.
Thank you, Mr. Link. You want to present your written text to the
I think she has it. Right.
Thank you so much.
And there's copies of that for you.
Thank you, Bob.
Now recognize Mr. Mike Harmon.
I swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to this issue today. I support the adoption of the regulation, and I have basically two major concerns. One, studies have shown that in several residential areas of the Kanawha Valley, cancer-causing toxic air pollutants exist in the ambient air at concentrations high enough to cause cancer in, one estimate was nearly 1 out of 100 individuals in a particular neighborhood of Institute. Secondly, I believe that surveys of the concerns of residents in our local area show an overwhelming support for cleaner air, especially for those chemicals that may cause cancer. Our nation and our state have had a long history of requiring the control or elimination of toxic materials found in food, water, and air. It is the primary responsibility of agencies such as the Environmental Protection Agency, the Food and Drug Administration, Department of Health, and the Air Pollution Control Commission to protect the public against unwarranted hazardous substances from entering the food chain, drinking water systems, and other paths which may result in illness or death. In this regard, I think that the proposal of the West Virginia Air Pollution Control Commission is in perfect accordance with its own mission, and that is protecting the public health first and foremost. I'm in no position to comment on the specific requirements for pumps, compressors, and so on, but I am ultimately qualified to speak as a citizen who lives in close proximity to the chemical industry. I live in St. Albans, about 1 mile from Carbide's Institute plant and about 4 to 5 miles east of the chemical complex in Nitro. I believe that when people learn that there are cancer-causing materials present in the air they breathe or in their water or food, they'll act to reduce or eliminate those things if possible. Some people that I know of have ruled out living and working in the Kanawha Valley because of their perception of our air pollution problem here. I can assume that there are some businesses and some industries who have chosen not to locate in the Kanawha Valley because of the perceived threat of air pollution. The mayor of Nitro has been recently quoted in the press citing chemical pollution as a major hindrance to economic expansion in his city. We've been told repeatedly by the chemical industry that we should let them reduce these emissions voluntarily. But what does history tell us? In 1977, many of these same cancer-causing chemicals were found in the air here in the valley. Nearly 12 years later, those chemicals are still present at a high risk to local residents. While some of the more responsible operations may very well honor such a commitment for voluntary reductions, not all will carry that out. In a poll done by Ryan Repass for the Roan Pellant Company after their purchase of Union Carbide at Institute, the concerns of the people of this valley were made clear. About 65% of those surveyed ranked the air quality here as only fair or poor. Nearly 80% ranked job opportunities as only fair or poor. Only 20% ranked job opportunities in this valley as good or excellent. Residents said they wanted a safe environment and a good economy, but they felt that they had neither. While most people think that the loss of the chemical industry jobs here would ruin the valley economically, they may not realize that the chemical industry employs less than 10% of the labor force. In the same survey, people indicated they believed that pollution had been reduced, but they gave the credit to governmental agencies for forcing the cleanup. When asked by a reporter about the emission of 107 tons of the carcinogen ethylene oxide and 28 tons of butadiene, Mr. Rudy Shomo of Rhone-Poulenc remarked that we will always have some emissions, but relatively speaking, it's already extremely low. Hopefully, he said, in 10 years' time, it will be extremely low compared to now. My own belief is that the present emissions of these two substances, ethylene oxide and butadiene, are far too high and must be reduced immediately. To do otherwise is to subject the residents of Institute and other high-risk neighborhoods to significant numbers of excess cancer deaths. I'd also like to briefly mention a statement submitted to this Air Pollution Control Commission by two people who conducted research on this problem. The statement is dated June 1, 1977, by Mr. Ed Light and Mr. David Woolley of the Appalachian Research and Defense Fund. And I'm quoting, "The EPA has sponsored 3 series of ambient air studies in the Kanawha Valley which verified the presence of toxic and carcinogenic compounds. EPA Region 3 recently provided us with a list of 21 compounds they consider carcinogenic from the Kanawha Valley survey." Further along in that document, it is stated that the National Cancer Institute has identified Kanawha County as being in the statistically highest group of U.S. counties for 1950 to 69 for mortality from lung cancer, leukemia, and cancers of the bone and other endocrine glands. The Center for Disease Control identified a high rate of birth defects of the central nervous system in Kanawha County.